Hi, I'm Whoopi Goldberg, and we're in New York City today for a very special occasion. Now, how special is it? Well, it's not every day that you can get William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, Patrick Stewart, and Jonathan Frakes together at the same time in the same room. And we have managed to gather them together for what we are calling a Star Trek Summit. It's an opportunity to talk about Star Trek and the films and other points of interest, and I'm going to be your host. So we hope that you're going to find it, as Spock would say, fascinating.
Live long and prosper.
Feature.
The line must be drawn here. This far, no farther.
The Nexus. It was like being inside Joy.
It's been an honor.
Who am I to argue with the captain of the Enterprise?
To family.
My friends, we've come home.
I want to welcome everybody to the first Star Trek Summit. But before we do anything else, have you all ever just sat down and hung out like this before? Is this the first time everybody's been together?
No.
Oh, you guys must have hung out.
Well,
you looked like you were hanging out.
Yeah, we were loose.
Loose? Mm-hmm. And Lenny and I have hung out.
We have hung
Lenny.
out. Yeah.
And I've hung out with Patrick.
Yeah, and we hung out longer than
So
you hung out.
if I hung out with you, and I hung out with him, and you hung out with him, then you and I hung out, which means you hung out with him.
I've hung out with you, and now I'm hanging out with you.
Billy and I have spent some hanging time.
Yes.
We have.
Now, this is the first time I've hung out with you two, though you had a huge part in my life, which I'll get to later on.
Really?
I want to hear that story
Yeah.
told. I've read this story.
It is the truth.
Tell it now.
Yeah,
Shall
yeah.
I tell
Start
you
with
how
it.
I ended
You know
up
this
with
story?
Star Trek?
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid growing up, there was never any black people. There were never any black people in the future.
Yeah.
There were never, when you look at all the sci-fi movies, there were never any black people until Star Trek.
Right.
And Nichelle Nichols, not only was she stunningly gorgeous, but she was working there. She was the communications officer, and she knew stuff. So years go by, LeVar Burton comes to my house, I'm hanging out. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting ready to do Star Trek. I said, what do you mean Star Trek? He said, they're making a new Star. I said, tell them I want to be on. A year goes by, I hear nothing. I call him, I say, did you tell them? He said, yeah, but they didn't believe me. Because this was when I was still a big star, you know. And they said, they told me, he said, that if you really want to do this, you'll call. So I called. And so they said, let's have lunch. So I went down and I sat with...
All the big wigs.
No, actually it was just...
Rick Berman, Gene Roddenberry.
Just Gene and Rick, I think it was. And Gene sat and looked and he said, well, why? And I said, because you're the only way I knew I was here. So I'd like to be that for somebody else. Yeah. And he said, you're serious? I said, yeah. He said, but it's a TV show. I said, it's the future, man. So he built me 10 Forward, and that's how I became Guinan, named after Texas Guinan, all because of your show.
Wow.
So.
Well,
Great.
I feel responsible in a very remote way, though.
Well, you listen.
We were hired hands.
Yeah, but still, do you, when people say these kinds of things, see, I'll ask all of you this. When people come up and gush, because I know you go to the conventions and people stop you on the stage and, oh my God, you changed my life.
That was electric. Did you feel that electricity?
I did, but I was ignoring it because I know your wife is here.
Yeah.
Do you ever think to yourself, now come on, it's enough with this? Or does it always take you by surprise that people have been moved?
When could it be enough? When they start touching you?
Yeah, inappropriate behavior, inappropriate physical contact is too much, I find. But that's never been your policy.
Can you define inappropriate?
Well, you know, people want you to sign body parts, for instance.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I've done that.
they're no longer attached. You have done? I've never signed a body part. No, I won't. You know what? I won't sign money either. I think it's because I'm not an American citizen. I feel if I were to sign a dollar bill, that they might arrest me or take away my green card, you know? So I won't sign money and I won't sign body parts.
You may want to reconsider the body parts thing.
Why?
You signed body parts, I bet, haven't you, Bill?
Seriously, I'm flattered when people say you've affected my life. I'm flattered by it. But there are permutations. I remember an experience I had early on because Spock is the science officer and supposed to have all this amazing scientific knowledge. I was invited to go to Caltech, a major technical institute of learning, and I was introduced to these genius young people, and they're talking their way through their projects, explaining to me what they're doing, and I don't understand a word, not a word about what they're saying, and I'm just nodding sagely, and then finally they finish explaining what they're doing, and then they would say, well, what do you think, you know? And I would wisely say something like, you're on the right track. You know? It could be embarrassing. Yeah. You know?
Hoping they wouldn't say what track. I'm hoping they wouldn't say what track was that. Yeah.
Right. Because they're so identified with the character. Yeah. You know.
But if you treat the question seriously, I mean, not sort of inappropriate behavior, but however you define that, but what we know to be true, like NASA, in the days when we were doing the show, NASA would be sending up rockets trying to get to the moon. Right. And our ratings would go up when the rocket went up. And as our ratings went up, more money was appropriated to NASA because of the popularity of our show. And so from time to time, one of us would be invited to a rocket lift off, and it was extraordinary. And I was invited to see the LEM, the lunar module, right. And in fact got into the lunar module with all those people there. As when I came out, I was in the lunar module. Right. I've told this story before, but it's, I suppose, not inappropriate here. And I was lying down in the hammock where ultimately one of the astronauts maneuvered the craft to the moon, and I'm looking there, and right over here, right here, is a lead window, a leaded glass window, so that you could see out. For some reason, they wanted the astronauts to be able to use a sextant or something to shoot the stars. And as I'm looking out at a star field that they were projecting from some place in the building, the Enterprise shot across. And when I came down, I never told you this story? No. And when I came down the stairs, because there was gigantic stairs, it was like coming out of some church, and walked down these stairs, there were 5,000 engineers that all collected. They were all in on the joke, because earlier in the day, when it was announced that I was coming, they went down to some place, and they bought a model, and all these engineers were putting the model together, and then they photographed it to shoot across. So they all laughed, and I came down and signed on the model that they finally made, "See you on the moon," because it was just shortly before they went to the moon. And that was part of the Star Trek popularity that fitted in with the culture and the society.
We were there the day they rolled out the first space shuttle.
Really?
In Mojave, California, this was the one that was mounted piggyback on the 747 to practice landings, and it was called the Enterprise. And the Air Force band played the Star Trek theme as that thing came rolling out of the hangar. It was an amazing event.
Science in this country, to a large degree, has been inextricably linked with Star Trek. And many, many engineers would say time and time again that they had gone into their fields because of viewing Star Trek and had become these renowned engineers or scientists.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is, now, you didn't grow up with Star Trek, right? This wasn't a show you were aware of. Jonathan, did you come up knowing about it?
No.
So comes this script,
I knew about it, but not to the point that my wife had his picture on her wall.
Genie had?
Yeah, and then...
I was hoping you would say a body part, but
no. And then after I got the show and I went home to visit my mother in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, I told you this story.
Yeah.
The refrigerator in my little house in Bethlehem had his picture on it.
You know, but he's not bitter about
Not at all.
And now it's got Leonard's picture. That's because I love you, Leonard, and I wanted to include you.
I'm grateful. I'm forever grateful.
So now you get this audition. Your agent says, here's this coming.
Because, I mean, I was, as Patrick was, sci-fi wasn't our first love. Would you say that's fair?
I think that's very fair.
And certainly not what we
Whoa! What does that mean? What you mean?
No, I mean, what I would choose to read would be Updike or Cheever or something like that.
Something intellectual.
They was
not even intellectual.
They was esoteric.
A little bit. I can see on his face.
Do you think that we were some lower form of entertainment? Or what is,
No, it just wasn't. I wasn't one of those guys who liked. I watched Bonanza.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with intellect or. But boy, did I learn fast what a part of the popular culture we were about to become. That was the most incredible awakening of all.
There's a marvelous story about Robert Wise, who was going to direct the first motion picture, I think it was ultimately called, not knowing anything about Star Trek. And it was his wife. He said, "Oh, you got to," because he was offered the job to direct it, and his wife said, "You got to take it." He said, "Well, I don't know anything about Star Trek."
Well, he had done the Day the Earth Stood Still, which was a classic science fiction film, but you're right, he did not know anything about Star Trek.
And his wife knew all about Star Trek and encouraged him to do it. And I'm not sure whether he, before he passed away, regretted it or not.
He may well have.
I asked my children, because they had watched it. When I was working at Stratford in the late 60s, 70s, I used to come home between shows and drive out into the country to give my kids a bath, read them a story, put them to bed. And they were watching this show with these guys in the tight-fitting shirts and
the washboard stomachs and
no, that was a different show, I think, altogether. So when this came up, I had to say to them, "You guys watch this show. Tell me about it." And here for the record, I've a record, as you people say.
Record is all right.
Record is all right.
We don't
sure?
recognize
We know
that
what
word.
you're talking about.
We know what it meant.
Because I just want to be clear about this. But the first person to use the phrase "to boldly go" was my 14-year-old daughter. She said it
Did you
first.
say to boldly go?
To boldly go. Yeah. But it's been used since then by others, and they think that they've invented. No, Sophie was the first, 14 years old, smart kid.
The history
so hard.
The fact is, I think that it's true. The history of science fiction in entertainment changed with Star Trek. It really did.
Yes.
Prior to
How do you
Star
mean
Trek, prior to Star Trek, science fiction was a much cruder kind of form of entertainment. It was Buck Rogers. It was.
Twilight Zone.
I worked in 1951 in one of my. I think my very first job in films. In a gigantic production called, and I thought it was going to really rocket me into space, if you pardon the pun. It was called Zombies of the Stratosphere.
I think I was in that movie, too.
Were you?
Well, there was a movie that I did with Toby Hooper, which originally was called Zombies from Outer Space.
Really?
Could it be the same one?
You look familiar. How you doing?
They shared a two-bagger.
Zombies of the Stratosphere was three of us in a spaceship that shuttled across the screen like that and left a trail of smoke. We landed and we appropriated a couple of Colt 45 revolvers and a pickup truck, and we're going to take over Earth.
Yes.
So you were the zombie.
It was I was a zombie.
I
that's
see.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I was one of those people. Yeah.
I see.
So I was doing Aliens all the way back that long ago.
Is this on video, Leonard, this movie?
Is what?
Is this on video, this movie?
Yes, it is.
It will be
it's
now.
available, and I will sell you a copy. Yeah.
Sell me a copy.
The question of how science fiction has evolved from those crude sort of child-driven stories to something more sophisticated, that Star Trek, and then beyond Star Trek. I mean, there's, again, a wonderful story of Star Wars taking place first, and Paramount scrambling to overcome the lead that was taken by Star Wars and attempting to quickly put something into production.
Exactly.
Star Trek.
Yeah. We all owe a big thanks to George Lucas, because all of us here because we were canceled in 1968 or 9, and were off the air except for reruns, which were very active. But it wasn't until 1977 when Star Wars opened and did this incredible business and had this incredible success that the people at Paramount said, "Oh, we have something like that. We have something called Star Trek. Let's make a movie."
I didn't know that.
And that's what kicked us.
And that links in with the Robert Wise story, who he had made this wonderful science fiction film, and so they asked him to direct it, and he'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
So it kind of links together.
Now, when you heard that they were going to revive Star Trek, did you want to have some input? Did you want to help them out, or did you want it to just do what it was supposed to do? Is this a question you've answered a million times?
Well, for the purposes of this DVD, why not answer it again?
All right.
Why are you looking at me?
I've been dying to hear what they thought of us.
Well,
that's where we're going. Isn't that where she's going?
Leonard and
I know this is a little edgy. This is a little provocative because.
Well, it is because there were many mistakes made.
Well,
both
by us
before. No, you guys. Latter day. No, that's a big fist.
I promise you.
And you're looking good. No, we have stories of mistakes that were made in the making of.
Why don't you start with yours?
How far would I go? For the purposes of this DVD?
Well, let me reframe it then, because maybe it came out the wrong way. When I heard they were making the play,
way of
yes, I do. You'll see.
Okay.
When I heard they were doing the play of Color Purple, my first response was I was agitated, and then I thought, well, you're not going to do it. You haven't done it for 20. You don't think about doing it. So what's the problem? And it went away. So I wondered if the same thing came to you all. Why are they doing this again? It can't be done better than we did it. What's the point of it?
Well, they were going to do, after we were canceled, Paramount was going to do a whole network and lead it off with the series Star Trek.
Awesome.
And then they dropped that idea. Am I right so far?
That's right.
And then decided to do a movie of the week. Then they dropped that idea and decided to do a major motion film.
Feature. Right.
Feature. And then they started going back and forth. So for several years, we kept hearing, get ready, we're going to, no, we're not going.
We're starting, we're stopping,
we're stopping, we're going.
Yeah.
And then Robert Wise is hired.
Yeah.
And we realized we're going to make a big motion picture to ride on the popularity of Star Wars and equal Star Wars in its production. And that's where they were coming from.
It was a complicated issue for me. I don't think there's any secret about the fact that I was very heavily identified with the Spock character, and I was trying to find my way into other kinds of work, and to build a career beyond that. And I was actually here. I was in New York on Broadway acting in a wonderful play called Equus when I got a call from Jeff Katzenberg at Paramount. And said, I'd like to come and talk to you about this movie. And he came, and we had a very intense couple of days of conversation, and we ironed out some issues that had been hanging loose for some time, hadn't been resolved. And he got them resolved, and then I met with Robert Wise and Gene Roddenberry and Jeff, and we decided to go ahead and work on the movie. But it was not an easy decision. It was complicated, because the question was, is this a one-time thing, and why get back into that territory when you've been gradually growing out of it and into other kinds of work, and what will it mean to go back into that character? It was complicated.
Were you approached as if it was going to be the launching of a new franchise?
We were approached in every which way.
Yeah.
But by... Well, yeah, but you heard the rumors. This is going to be this, and I didn't know any more than you. Less, probably.
No, you have to remember, it was called Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Right.
So, which had a singularity about it. The sense was we're going to make a movie. It had no sense that it was going to go beyond that. And as a matter of fact, when the movie was done, I really thought that's it.
Well, they destroyed the sets. They destroyed this expensive bridge that they
really.
Every movie they made. Even the subsequent movies, to 6 or 7, I don't know about your movies, which we're going to get to, I'm sure, in a moment. All 6 movies that I was in, movies be over. Thank you, guys. It was great, wonderful. And they would either sell the set, destroy it, burn it, send it to a fair or something. Right. But it was over. That was the last movie we were going to make. And then a year later, let's do it again, and let's spend the money and build a new bridge set, which was exactly the same as the previous bridge set.
The best thing that ever happened to me in terms of contact, as we're being serious now, was a letter I got from a police sergeant in the Las Vegas police force. And he said that he enjoyed the show, but most particularly he said, there are bad days in the job that I do, really bad days, when my view of humanity and of the world is low. I see some awful things. When that happens, when that day comes to an end, my response to it is to go home and put in a tape of Star Trek. And I feel that things will get better.
That's good.
Is that Gene's legacy? That he actually left us with something, some great possibility of what mankind could be?
He had a great belief in mankind's capabilities.
He had a real belief that the future was going to be the way Star Trek was.
Yeah, he had a great
His
belief
vision of hope was exactly what drove.
You know, when we started doing the show, there were the stories about the chariots of the gods, the whole concept that maybe we had been visited by a previous incarnation of some kind and had built the pyramids and then gone away or whatever. And he said, it's rubbish, he said. These wonderful things were all done by mankind, not by any ancient astronauts that came here from some other planet. They were all done by mankind, and mankind should take the credit for it and move forward and continue to do wonderful things.
I'm sure that's true. About Gene, but also there is a really commercial aspect to that view, and that is when I was doing a show involving EMTs, and it was called Rescue 911, we found, and ultimately built on that the shows that were most successful were the ones where people were saved. You had a positive note. Here comes the EMTs, and you're going to be okay, whereas, in fact, about 80% of the calls result in death, but we didn't dramatize those. How awful it is, and subsequently was proved by another show that Gene did, was if the view of the future was bad, it was not, people didn't want to see that.
Right.
But to know that we would exist 300 years from now, that we will overcome this environmental crisis that we're facing, this catastrophe that we're all hurtling towards, that will be cured by the very technology that is doing it. To know that that is true, and to know that people will evolve and become better, even though there's a great deal of evidence to the contrary. That's a positive note, and people want to see that because ultimately we all want to have faith.
It's fundamentally the reason for the success of the series, don't you think? That argument?
Absolutely.
I think people are inspired by the anti-sexism and anti-racism that was practiced on all the shows for the last 40 years, and that the hope of that possibility, given what's going on in the world. I hear it from people every day, the same thing that you hear from this Vegas cop, that when things go bad, I go back to the show or something. It's like you. Yeah. The story you opened with is really...
You're
the example.
You're the living incarnation, right?
I am. So now, how many Star Trek movies were there? 5? Is it?
We were involved in 6.
6
and then Bill was involved in one more. You were involved in number 7, I think.
Right. Where Patrick and I worked.
Right. So, when you came back to play, I want to say with us, because I think I was in that one. I can't remember.
You remember the, what was it called? The Nexus? Wasn't there a thing called the Nexus in that
I thought that was something you took for your stomach.
That's where Malcolm McDowell came from, didn't he?
That's right.
That's right.
Malcolm McDowell was in the Nexus. And you know what?
Wait a minute. Malcolm McDowell was in the movie?
I have.
Because I think he's still there.
In the Nexus?
Yeah.
Well, no. Malcolm McDowell was in the movie that I was in with you.
He came out of the
That's
Nexus
right.
together.
That was the Nexus, Bill.
7?
That was 7.
7.
Yeah.
He's still in the Nexus?
Yeah.
You still there? Poor guy.
You were the only senior cast member of the original series, or the classic series. What do you prefer? Classic series, original series?
I'd rather you wouldn't talk about it at all.
You didn't appear in our show, Bill.
In your show?
In our series.
No, in the
I
series
did.
I did.
Leonard did.
I did.
Jimmy did.
I know.
Michelle did.
I did.
No? No?
No, I don't. No.
He's got all these lines to memorize, and like a TiVo, it gets loaded up, and that's it. His memory bank is absolutely.
I'm just remembering, you and I did a mind meld.
We did. It's a famous moment. In
That's right.
Star Trek.
We did a mind meld. That's right.
Who could forget the mind melt?
But I want to ask Bill.
How can you forget a mind
Are you going to ask him now why he didn't do the show? He was in the movie. They killed him in the movie.
I know.
Badly.
But this is Star Trek. You never die.
Never mind. Star Trek, they get a dinosaur bone, and they're able to get a DNA 160 million years later. Where is that?
You can always come
You
back.
always come
You can
back.
always come back. This came
Leonard
back.
was dead.
He came back.
Leonard was dead.
Oh, but I came back very
No, wait,
fast.
Data's dead.
I was still in good shape. I came back very
You
fast.
came back very fast with a director's assignment.
You got the directing assignment.
I died, and now I'm directing the
Directing
next one. How good was that?
That's a good deal.
Yeah, really.
So they never approach you. There was never found some way of trying to make.
Patrick, I'm going to say something, admit something to you. You're my buddy. I love you. We've been together many times over the years. We're really friends. Mm-hmm. I've never told you this. I've never watched your show. I never saw a full episode of The Next Generation.
Close up, Patrick.
Huge balls to admit, I think.
Huge balls. Captain's balls.
Well,
But that's what this is all about, isn't it? Balls.
You know who Whoopi Goldberg is?
Well,
She's this wonderful, warm lady that every time she touches me, electricity shoots me.
I'm going to ask you over one night.
Over where?
I'd show him which
My
episode
place.
he's thinking.
Which one do you think?
Certainly none that he's in.
Well,
That's a good point.
That's 178.
Did you do 178 shows?
Yeah.
That's
You could have seen one of the bloody shows.
right.
You could have watched
That's
one. We did
100 more shows
178
than
hours.
I know, but I don't watch TV. And then there was some.
You don't watch Boston Legal? Have you seen the guy on Boston Legal?
I've never watched Boston Legal.
T.J. Hooker?
I directed several, so the torture.
You saw the director's cut only.
Well, no, the torture was watching Russians. No, but the truth is, there was some reluctance, way buried deep. I must have had
But
some.
it's
reluctance.
coming out now.
It's coming out now.
Very healthy, I think.
Not healthy.
I think
No,
this is
it's
very
healthy.
healthy.
We both
for it to
feel
come
it's
out or not to watch.
I
It's
think
hurting us.
No, it's wonderful
but it's
that
good
it's
for
coming
you.
out.
To be able to
Yeah.
to vomit.
Come
this,
on, Bill.
Okay,
Come on, Bill.
I never watched it because
Say it, Bill.
I can't.
You
Look,
can.
you're safe. You're safe
because
with us.
I'm a newsaholic. I watch the news. I love sports. I
were
love
almost
movies.
there. You were
never
almost
watched
there.
hour-long
Safe for him?
television.
I don't buy
Did you
it.
ever watch this?
I don't buy it.
Did you watch
Bill,
178?
Bill, I love you. You're my buddy. We're very close to each other, and you're lying.
What are friends for?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll tell you.
Did you watch?
The truth is this. That, and I've said this
You're the
before.
one who
want to answer that
He's
question.
never seen the show either.
And I'm not trying to curry favor, but the fact is that when there was an announcement there was going to be a Next Generation with a whole new cast, I said, how's that going to work? Like, without us? Are you kidding?
We were talking together.
I can understand that.
I can understand that.
Of course.
Too. And I'm glad you got it out in the open.
And I said many times in public, they've carved out their own territory and they've done it, and I congratulate them. I think they're doing a wonderful job. But I don't, that's the truth.
But what did you mean?
It goes further than that. It goes further than that. In 7, in with the transitionary.
I was pointing at you.
Generations.
We
It's
want
called
Leonard.
Generation. The
We want
passing
Leonard
on
to
of
be
the
in it.
baton, the handing of the torch.
Right.
They wanted Leonard to be in it as well as myself.
Wow.
And
They
Leonard
wanted
said
Leonard to
no.
direct it.
They
Leonard said
didn't really
no.
want me in it.
They
didn't
wanted
really,
you in it. And I
no,
said, Leonard,
no.
I remember where we were, the parking lot at Paramount. I said, you've got to be in it. I'm not going to be in it. I said, Leonard, I grabbed him by the shoulder. You've got to be in it. I'm not going to be in it. He would
You
not.
know what? We can tell you the truth about that. We didn't want Leonard in it.
Well, I understand why it would have been a little bit tough.
Good stuff.
Because that was your bridge. That was your bridge.
In fact, before you go ahead,
Yeah.
there was a line, Captain on the Bridge, right? Captain on the Bridge was the line.
Right.
Well, on our last scene, when this bridge collapsed, And on top of me,
Right.
I said, "Bridge on the captain." They didn't buy it.
Well, damn
I
them.
support
That works at the conventions, doesn't it? That's a big one at the conventions.
I swear to God.
You
I tried to
opened with
put that
that?
line. I was dying. "Bridge on the captain."
I wanted him to say that. I mean, they needed to see that we had a sense of humor about
Yes.
it.
Yeah, nothing.
But now, Leonard, let me ask you, because there is no character like you on The Next Generation. There's no one like you.
Well, no, that's not exactly.
Is there, whoa, Data.
Whoa,
the
who's
android.
Data? Whoa.
Data.
Well, but the
Divided
difference
up,
is,
different.
but Leonard is got skin and stuff. Data was pretty much an android. There's a difference.
Well,
And he had a mama. I remember his mama.
To a degree,
Data didn't have a
to
mama.
a degree, you're right. In a
You
sense,
know.
you're right. But the fact is, it was presented to me that Data was the Next Generation's version of Spock. It was
Oh, I see.
he's the
I didn't
sort of
realize
Spock
that.
idea
I
in
see.
the show. With a question
I
about
came
his
the second
emotional
season.
capacities and so forth, you know, and having a certain kind of brain power, like I do, you know.
Right.
But you know, Data got laid
Never seen
several
you do
times.
something.
Did
He was
Spock-
fully functional.
I
was
know,
fully
but he
functional.
wasn't getting
He had
any.
3 speeds.
I know.
Do them.
Denise Crosby.
Do them. Jonathan, do them.
I wish it was my joke.
It is yours now.
It
for
is
the
mine.
purposes of this
But
DVD.
Bridge on the Captain I'm stealing, by the way.
What?
That'll be working at the next convention. Bridge on the Captain. You know what Bill said when we were doing the summit?
Now, can we talk about some we've shied away from it, and I'm not sure why, but I suspect it's probably time to bring it up. We talk about the wardrobe.
Oh.
Please.
God. Did you hate your spacesuit as much as...
I hated it after lunch.
Bam, bam, bam. I hated... You were thin. I hated with spacesuit.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Jonathan ruined several.
God, don't even.
He would. Sometime in the evening, he
spilling
would
food on?
He
No.
would just rip. He would literally tear them off his
we had
body.
spandex spacesuits, and I ripped, and I'd look at the poor wardrobe and like, oh no.
What did you hate about it?
It was so tight and so miserable. And
You see,
so-
that was spandex. 2 years of spandex
before we
and-
moved to those nice gabardine
well, and
card
who,
maneuver.
Who do we have to thank for that?
Bill, probably.
Why, Bill?
No, you.
No, wait,
Thank me for anything.
Well, you don't have to thank me. You have to thank my chiropractor, who said if they don't get you out of that suit, you're going to be permanently damaged.
That's right. We
They,
used to have
they
the
designed
stirrups
these
under the-
spandex suits with
With the
stirrups,
stirrups. Didn't
and
you?
every suit was designed at least one size too small because Gene, and it was Gene, he insisted that we were absolutely wrinkle-free, smooth, and the only way to achieve that was to have the thing too tight, too
So
small.
it'd be always pulling
So
like
you were,
this.
it was pulling, and
For
you were
14
having
hours
to
a day.
resist
Yeah.
against it.
That's
you see.
hard work.
Yeah,
Really.
it is. It's exhausting.
Really. It takes the energy.
Didn't you have stirrups? Didn't you have any stirrups on your show? On
No.
your Kazi's?
The only stirrups we had were on horses, where they belong.
The first film, when we made the first film, they wanted that immaculate look, and we had to be steamed before each shot.
Yeah.
There were guys with steamers would come and steam out any
Everywhere?
wrinkle before you walked.
Yeah,
everywhere.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It engorged.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It laid a lot of water in there.
On your show, did you have nicknames for everybody?
Billy?
Lenny?
Yeah. Billy!
Lenny!
Get on the set, Billy. Get off the
coming.
phone.
No, I can't. I'll be right there, Lenny.
Get off the phone.
All right.
Old Baldy.
All Baldy.
Captain Pecan.
Yes. That's
Captain
right.
Picard,
That's right.
Wackiest nut in the galaxy.
The nut job.
Yeah, number one.
Number one. Data the Android. Nothing really good.
And Marina, Counselor Troy, feeling shit.
Yeah. Aren't you the one that feels shit? Yes. That's what I do on the show. She says, I feel great pain from both of them. See? All that stuff works at the conventions.
What was your experience on the series?
I had a great time. I had a really good time.
Oh.
Good people.
You had a nickname.
Yes, I was Shuttlehead.
You ever
Because of my hats. It looked like the ship. And I told everyone I was his great-great-great-great-grandmother. And
How
they bought it.
many episodes did you do?
I only didn't do 1 year. So I did everything but 1 year.
Did all episodes other than one?
Except for 1 year, yeah.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah, I worked all the years except for 1 year.
Yeah, but you didn't do all the
No, not
episodes.
every episode, but
Every now and again.
yeah.
Whenever we could have her, we
This
put
was a Guinan
put
show.
10 forward
That's
together.
right.
It's a whoopee show.
Yeah, but
That's right. Favorite moments in the show? Any show.
Yeah, this is hard because it's emotional. And I've never been able to tell this anecdote without... You see, it's beginning to happen to me, and I've got to do a show tonight, and I've got to keep my throat open. But when we were shooting the final moment of the last movie, and we had a scene in the ready room together, and we went on stage 7 o'clock in the morning to start rehearsing it, and I couldn't say the lines. Jonathan had to say to me, Captain, it's been an honor serving with you. And I had to say, no, number one, the honor was all mine. And I could not say those lines. And it was horrible.
The reason you couldn't say them was because you were number one. He was number two. And he called you called him number one, and you were confused.
I suppose so. I suppose so. Also, I was lying, too.
Oh, God.
That's a complicated moment.
Very complicated.
The question that I really want to ask you, because this has been on my mind, and maybe it's crazy or maybe it's not. Does it ever make you uncomfortable, this following that Star Trek has?
I love this phrase. I don't want to bother you.
But
Excuse me, I don't want to bother you. You're already bothering me. What do you...
Here's a perfect opportunity for Star Trek getting attention etiquette, okay?
Okay.
So if you were to say to all the folks that want to approach you, what is the best way to do it? What's the best way to approach you?
Well, money.
Money.
Really
You just took the words right out of my...
And you thought you
doesn't
weren't
hurt,
funny. Right,
okay?
right.
Being young and beautiful,
Right.
certainly. Young and beautiful and money would get all our attention.
Male, female, doesn't matter.
Well, I don't know about these guys.
Yes,
There was a
you
bathroom
do.
break.
Yes.
And everybody went off
Yes.
to the bathroom.
Not us.
Not us.
All right. We know where we're at.
What? Come on, Johnny. What would appeal to you?
I'm pretty easy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm the right... I don't like
Do you
to be
wanna
disturbed when I'm
rephrase that?
eating it. Well, I'm honored. I feel the way Leonard does, that it's a great deal. It's a great privilege that these people respond to our show.
Or in my case, make absolutely certain that I'm not Ben Kingsley. That's always a really big
Yeah,
help.
but how about if you haven't slept well last night? You're a little irritable. I mean, even your wife is going to get it.
Here's the one. I've had this more than once. Hey, aren't you the guy? You were Dr. Kirk from Star Wars.
whoa.
How many wrongs are there?
Well, I had a unique
There are no
experience
rights.
recently. You know, I've been doing a lot of photography work, and
What, modeling?
and no, click.
Nude modeling?
Yes. And the work is in galleries and museums, and I was at an event with my wife recently in Los Angeles, and we were walking to the parking lot after the event. Found ourselves walking with Tom Hanks, chatting on the way to the car, and
As you do. Tom and I.
As you do.
Tom and I, yeah. And some young fellow with a camera comes running up and says, Mr. Hanks, can I have my picture taken with you? And Mr. Hanks said, sure, who's going to take the picture? And then he recognized me, this young guy, and he said, oh, Mr. Nimoy, you're a wonderful photographer. Will you take the picture? And I did.
Yeah.
And I did. Now that kid has a picture of himself with
He's got
Tom
a
Hanks
Nimoy.
taken by Leonard
That's
Nimoy.
funny.
Not bad.
You know, this may not be generally known as we're talking about Mr. Hanks, but Mr. Hanks is a big fan of the show.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanks actually knows the names of the episodes. Yeah.
I hear he's actually seen an episode of Next Gen.
Really?
That's what I've been
Well,
told.
thank God there's one person who has seen it, because there are a lot of people that haven't seen any.
Because
Or
I've
maybe
seen
part of one.
the brothers Karamazov.
Is that an episode of Star Trek?
You were languishing somewhere, I'm sure.
You've done a lot of TV as well. You knew what it was to do. See, we had all gone into this thing because what you had created laid an entire weight on us that we had to overcome. because you had created a fan base that was very loyal to you. That was very hard to overcome. You had created this, you were part of the popular culture, as I said earlier, and that was something we didn't, and I don't think you and I particularly understood what we were getting ourselves into. Dorn was a Trekkie. He knew. Will Wheaton knew. LeVar was already a star.
We had no
idea how big this was.
I was being asked to go to conventions during that first season. I turned them all down. I didn't know what they were. I felt. Besides, I needed to be learning my lines at weekends. I couldn't go traveling around the country. I was so frightened that Monday morning would come around and I wouldn't be ready, or Tuesday or Wednesday. Anyway, finally, when the season was over, I accepted an invitation to go to Denver. They took me, I got off the plane, they picked me up in a car, they took me to this place, I went in a back door, and they said, okay, you're going to be on in 10 minutes. And I said, that's great. Is there anybody out there? This was a serious question. You know, I don't know.
5,000 people.
I walked on this stage, I knew what it was like to have been a Beatle in Shea Stadium. And I had no idea through the entire first season that was happening out there.
It's still that way. Don't you guys get that in Vegas?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Talk a moment about what it's like to go out on stage.
Let me just say this first. Patrick was quoted. I wonder if it's accurate. Patrick was somewhere quoted as saying, if I had known what I was getting into, I would have said no, and it would have been a mistake. Does that sound familiar?
That's absolutely accurate.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk a moment what it's like to go out on stage in front of 4, 5, 10. We used to go out in front of 15,000 people.
You remember the Albert Hall?
Oh, what was
in Albert Hall. We've been there.
Yeah.
And not know exactly what you're going to say. I mean,
didn't it become easy?
It became like flying, but in the beginning,
when you describe it to your friends, other actors included, what particular skill and what it is you do at a convention, it's inconceivable, because it's really a combination of stand-up, public speaking, anecdotes. I do, of course, interpretive dance and singing as part of my convention appearances,
but strip.
Some choose not to. I do impersonations, and you have a captive audience.
Right.
You've got 15,000 people who have paid because they like the show, so you don't even have to win them over.
Right.
It's.
So
have you ever done that?
I've never been to the convention. Never been invited.
That's not true.
No, that's
I know
absolutely. I swear on my grandkids.
Tell her she's lying.
Oh, no, this is the truth.
They've never invited you?
No, they've not.
Unbelievable.
That's impossible.
They've not.
It is impossible.
Stupid.
No, it's absolutely true.
Unbelievable.
We've never been asked.
They're scared of you, that's why.
We've never been asked.
Yeah.
That's impossible.
I don't understand.
Have you ever talked to somebody about it?
I don't know. Who do you go? Is there like a convention
there's
person?
a guy.
I'm gonna get hold of somebody now. But let me ask you this: given now, you know I don't fly, so maybe that's why they.
What do you do?
I have a bus. I don't.
So
fly.
you're like what's his name on the football
John
team?
Madden.
John
Yeah,
Madden.
yeah.
You take a bus across the country?
Yes, I do.
I've seen her bus. She used to park it in my street.
And it is in
street
our
you live down
street.
in Los Angeles?
In
the
our
Palisades,
street.
yeah.
I believe I brought you to that street. Hello. No.
Well,
but here's the question.
There are conventions that you can get to on a bus. I wonder if it's the same situation as when you first said you wanted to do Star Trek. And,
I think probably.
They're waiting for a call from you.
Probably.
Does she really want to do it? If she calls us, we'll.
I'm sure that
It may be. And also, the other thing that I think that happens, particularly with me, is that people are never sure that I would be willing to do something.
There you are.
That's what I know.
That I would be willing to.
Could it be that of all of us here, you're the one person that has a stand-up solo act history and reputation?
Maybe.
And a very successful one.
Saw you on Broadway, baby.
Yes, we were all younger
I did
then.
too.
Now, Patrick, you're always on stage somewhere. You're doing the name of the play we cannot say because we're on a stage, so we will not say it.
All right.
But, I used to be in the theater, too.
But what's so admirable about him is his dedication to that theater. And those of us who do theater know how elemental it is. It is so, it requires such dedication, such strength, such energy, such endurance, such a mental approach. It is the actor, the ultimate actor, really, who comes off successful movies and television and then goes back to connecting with the crowd.
But it's the kind. That's exact. I mean, without blowing smoke too much.
Blow away.
That's exactly how our show became successful, because that's how he approached Picard, and the rest of us were sort of. It's like playing tennis with somebody who's a better tennis player. You go, ooh, ooh, ooh. That's how it's going to be, and he approached the work that way on the TV show with 8 pages as opposed to 5 acts.
And Jonathan, you're directing.
All over the place. Is that something you always wanted to do? Did you always want to direct?
It grew on me as I saw. I always thought that was the best job on the set. Mm-hmm. It's actually, I now think it's probably the best job in the world, to direct movies.
And Leonard, your photography, we were talking about it just a moment ago, but you just did a book on these gigantic Zoftic women, these
large
gigantic,
women, yes.
large, gorgeous, but big.
Yeah.
I mean, these are
he has
not
also
huge.
a wonderful philosophy behind the book.
Tell me, please.
Well, the book really deals with the issue of body image in our culture. What is beautiful? We're being told by the fashion industry that a certain kind of body image is required to be considered beautiful. And the fact is that most people, particularly women, don't live in that kind of a body, and never will. But they're being told, if you buy these pills or buy this diet or buy this exercise program or try this surgery,
right,
you might get closer to the ideal. And it's just that carrot that's held out there for the sake of commerce, for the sake of money. And this book addresses that issue.
It's a wonderful book. We talk about it quite a bit on our show. For a moment, I want to just talk to you for a second. From Twilight Zone to Boston Legal, do you ever stop?
No. If I stopped, I might not start.
I understand that. I understand.
Yeah. No, I just, you keep going.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Boy, it's working for you now.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh.
He's done a great job of changing careers. Seriously, from a leading man to a great character actor. And
It's just evolution. Well, we've all done that.
Done it very, very well. Did a great job.
But now you've all directed, right? You've all directed Star Trek.
Well, these guys have directed movies.
Right,
I
you've
only
not done them.
directed series.
I see. You've all. Oh, well, that's more than I've done. You directed me.
I directed you.
Yes, which is kind of the balance.
When Patrick directed our series, he said to me, Jonathan.
You said.
No. He was. Is there any way that you could motivate kneeling? If you could kneel down, see there's that big open space over there. It would be great for me if while you're saying the line, if you can. I said, sure, I'll try it for you, Patrick. Whatever you like.
Get the shot right. I couldn't get the
Jonathan, would you kneel? Could you kneel?
You know what? He did.
I did it.
He knelt on the floor of the ship, on the deck of the ship.
Because that's where the camera was.
Oh, man.
How did you motivate?
I did it for him, because he did stuff for me.
I know, but what could you possibly be thinking?
I was
if
thinking,
your character, the captain of the ship,
I was thinking what a wonderful
kneeled
actor he is.
and knelt before him. Someday he may be a sir.
My liege. Oh, my liege. In the engineering, that was it.
It was in engineering, yeah.
So wait a minute. He directed you by saying, could you motivate?
No, he didn't even ask me to motivate. He asked me to kneel.
I just wanted his head down there, low down.
I said I'd be happy to. Grouchos? We taught you how to do the Groucho, didn't we?
You did.
There's a lot of good American acting things you learned.
And that I use today.
That you're using today.
Yelling, for instance. I do a lot of yelling.
Acting is yelling.
That's one of the first things I learned when I
But you
went to
never
Hollywood.
yelled as the captain, right?
Rarely.
Very rare.
Very rarely. I did say...
You yelled at Alfred.
We'll draw the line here! I seem to remember saying. The only actor...
That's forceful. Yeah.
I could turn here into 3 syllables.
You did say this at one time, though, and I think I'm not sure if it was on camera. I have never, in my 30 years in the theater, been treated like this. I do remember hearing that once.
What was it about?
What was it about?
Oh, I know. Something to do with
Cold
craft
coffee
service.
or something.
No cheese? The crackers were bad?
Cold coffee?
But, Whoopi was asking about directing. I'm going to help you out a little bit here.
Oh, no, why?
It was a good question.
Listen, to me, this is just a joy, because I've never gotten a set with all of you. So the things that you've been able to do, whether it's directing or acting, and in a bit we're going to talk about the things that are outside of Star Trek, but I just find it amazing.
I want you to ask Bill about the first day that he heard, what was his reaction the first day that he heard that I was going to direct the next Star Trek film.
Bill? What was your reaction the first time you heard that Leonard was going to direct the first Star Trek Generation movie?
That's about it. That's about it. And a few more.
Did you want to direct?
It lasted several days.
Did I want to direct?
Yeah.
I really, well, I love directing. We all obviously love directing. Leonard taught me a great deal. Mm-hmm. Leonard taught me courage. Actors are mostly fearful, you know. Oh, the next job. Will they not love me? Well, he didn't give a thing. Mm-hmm. He didn't care at one point, mostly because he didn't care. So he had the audacity to say, all right, I'll play it, but I want to direct, which is what we were all, what every actor, or most actors want to do anyway. But we're fearful to say, no, thank you, goodbye. No, we got our director, thank you so much. Because once you say, I'll do it, but I have to direct, you can't say, all right, I'll do it, but I won't direct.
Right.
I mean, that's humiliating.
Right.
So if you take a position, you've got to stand the position. So, or a price. If you say, no, I want $10. Well, we only got $5. Well, I'll take $7. No, we only have $5. So you come down, all right, I'll take the $5. You know, you can't.
Right.
So he had the audacity to stand there and say, I'm going to direct, or I'm not going to be in it. And they went, okay.
So, Jonathan, now you directed the movies, you directed the TV. What? Why?
I wasn't that good an actor. So I was turned into a nice little director. Why? Because it's what Bill said. I don't know if you feel this way, but I know that I certainly did, that it was a dream to get to direct. It was something that you're more involved with the storytelling. I like the whole managing of the people, the casting a crew at the same time as you cast a cast, the whole... I loved it. And I loved being on the set every day. I loved the whole... And I had the company of my friends for my first movie. I had people who I trusted, whose opinion I valued.
None of us on our show would have directed had it not been for Jonathan. That's me, Gates, LeVar, Michael. Have I missed anyone? Brent never wanted to, did he?
No. He says he didn't.
He said... Marina.
But he'll come back with the next movie. He said, remember.
He got to direct an episode because he went what Jonathan called to Paramount University, which meant that in addition to playing Commander Riker and all of that work that involved, Jonathan, for 2 years, went to every production meeting, editing sessions. He sat in on casting sessions. He learned the process by being there and watching other good people do it. Wow. And finally, he wore them down.
I did.
The studio said, oh, God, let's let him just give him one. And Jonathan walked onto that sound stage that first morning, stage 8 at Paramount, an authentic director. Wow. I don't think any of us were at first. LeVar, Michael, they've become directors. I was just having fun. I was just excited to be in a Hollywood studio. But he was authentic from the very beginning. And so it was entirely appropriate that when the second movie came along, that they should ask Jonathan to direct.
Bill and I asked for permission to direct during the making of the series, and we flat out refused.
But you never directed episodes?
No, flat out refused.
Yeah, I had to fight for 3 years to get
contemplated whatsoever. It was out of the question.
Preparation on a science fiction thing then was, you had to prepare. What were the things going to look like? And you didn't have time to be playing the week before while you were preparing that week. So go ahead, Leonard.
It was just out of the question. They just weren't going to have it. So when the opportunity came along, when Spock died at the end of 2, and it was clear they wanted Spock back for 3, I felt I had the opportunity the leverage to open the door.
Tell them that story, and maybe you will now reveal what was whispered into your ear by not only DeForest, by Bones, but by the producer.
Tell me what you're talking about.
Here's what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm talking about. He dies, okay?
Yeah.
And it's over.
Yeah.
And then Leonard, the actor, comes back for the third thing. And it was staged where when he died, Bones leans in and says something. And I said, what did he say? What was that for? That had nothing to do with the story. What did he lean in and say? And he has never told me what he said, but they used that to bring him back. So one would think, hey, well, then it was pre-planned.
It was, you're right. It was an amazing day. We really had planned to be finished with the Spock character. And I was depressed because the film was going so well, and I thought, we're making a big mistake here. I mean, Star Trek II was being made, and being made very, very well. It was a good script, well directed, well acted, and here we came down to my last day. And anyway, fortunately, just before the final death scene, where I'm going into this chamber to save the ship and die,
right.
Out comes the producer and says to me, is there anything you can do or say that would leave a thread for the future? I thought, whoa, wow, this is momentous. So I said I could do a mind meld on DeForest Kelley, who's laying there unconscious or semi-conscious, and I could just say a word to him. And he said, what would the word be? I said, I'll say remember. That's ambiguous enough to be picked up as a thread to anything, and that's exactly what happened. I said, "Remember," and we built the next film on that word.
But to all intents and purposes, you were through, done. You held that position, even with me, knowing that I would never reveal that position. But was it a negotiating position so that you would be able to direct 3, or did you not think of that?
At that time?
Yes.
No.
Well, even some. Well, remember. No, what are you going to say? I don't want to say remember. I'm dying. I'm dead. I'm dying. Why would I say remember?
No,
remember what?
No, I had no plan in mind. Seriously, I had no plan in mind. When the film opened.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
He
gets on his knees because he says, "Get on your knees." I'll get on my knees, but I don't know how to motivate it, but I'm on my knees. The producer say remember. Remember.
Listen to me carefully.
Yes.
Pay attention. The film opened very well, was very well received. And about 5 or 6 days after it opened, I got a call to come to Paramount to talk about the next movie. And I said to my agent, what should we ask for? They want me and they need me, and I'll get good money, but let's try to broaden the career. He said, right, what do you have in mind? I said, what do you think they would say if I told them I wanted to direct the film? He said, I think that's a great idea. And that's the way it happened. And this was en route to the meeting. And I walked into the producer's office, and he said, we'd like to know if you'd like to be involved in the making of the next Star Trek movie. I said, yeah, and I'd like to direct it. He said, oh, that's an interesting idea. Let's have a walk down the hall to Mr. Eisner. And that's the way it all started.
You know, I'm just going to make one more shot at it, and then you got to tell your stories because we've been talking too much.
I'm fascinated.
Here's the thing. Here's what I don't understand.
Stuff.
Here's what I don't understand. Jonathan Frakes, wonderful actor.
Yeah.
The director says, can you motivate getting on your knees? Sure. Okay? I go, what? He's the captain of the ship. What's he going to do on his knees? How do you motivate that? The producer comes in and says, Leonard, you're dying, you're dead, you're gone. It's the end of 2. And can you say remember? Oh, sure, I can say remember. Every actor knows. Well, what do you mean? What do I feel? What am I saying? Why am I kneeling? What am I saying remember for? Everything you do has a spine. I'm going to get on my knees. I'll be all right. You got to get there. Huh? Remember? Yeah, I'll say remember. There had to be something in there.
No, you're absolutely right. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I had a plan that we would make 4 more.
For the purposes of this DVD,
we would make 4 more films, and I would direct 2 of them, and you would direct 1, and then I would produce 1, and then you would die. I had it all laid out.
Now, Patrick,
how did you know that?
Settle.
So he's the captain.
Why haven't you directed
or is it
a film, one of the films?
I haven't directed a film because I'm probably the only one of this group here. I don't know about you, Whoopi. I didn't want to direct the films.
I was going to ask if you chose not to.
Oh, deliberately. I think it came up. I think sitting in Sherry Lansing's office one day talking about the next movie, it was suggested, but I killed it flat. And okay. Do you use the term blowing smoke here in this country?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
When you puff on it, you blow smoke, absolutely.
Well, I learned that phrase from him. He knows that. I didn't want to direct because of what I'd seen Jonathan do, particularly on his first movie, on
Blowing Smoke.
Yeah. It's like I don't want to direct in the theater either, because I've been lucky to work with great theater directors. I can't do what they do. Stick to what you can do. I love directing the series. In fact, I would say the 6 episodes I directed, they kept me going during those last years, 7 years. To know that somewhere in a few months' time there was an episode coming up with my name on it was fantastic. And to be directing these episodes with your pals in front of the camera, and even more important, with your pals behind the camera, too.
What did you do when you were directing?
I asked him if he'd kneel down in an empty
Yes, but no.
He's never forgiven me for it.
With your pals. You're wonderful friends. You love each other. But something in your actor's mind doesn't like, Jonathan, would you stop smiling? Come on.
Yeah, but we did
Can
all
you
of
say
it.
to
Yeah,
your,
we did
your
all
buddy,
of it. Absolutely.
For 170, you did 179? You're on the last.
178.
Right,
Yeah.
so 178. So on the 177th show, Jonathan says, Patrick, I can't stand the smile. Would you stop smiling?
Yeah, sure. We said,
really?
But we said that when we weren't directing.
Yeah, we were said it. It was absolutely free.
Things
You were there.
that you wouldn't didn't like about his performance.
If you didn't have thick skin on our set, you really didn't survive.
Really?
It was a very, very brutal room.
Tough room.
It was.
A tough room.
I don't understand the distinction. You say you really enjoyed doing the episodes, but you did not want to direct the film.
Yeah, because I'd been in the films and they were outside my abilities. The scale and scope of it was too huge. Also, I felt I couldn't play the captain and take on that responsibility. I don't know how it was for you, but when we were directing episodes, I hated it, the days when I had to act. And furthermore, I couldn't act in the episodes I directed. I used to walk same arm as leg. I was so stiff in my own episodes, and I tried to get them to cut my scenes down. They would do that anyway. They would give you an episode in which you were light. We never directed anything in which we were especially heavy.
I understand that very well. The first Star Trek film that I directed, I was hardly in it. It was The Search for Spock, so I didn't have to show up until near the very end.
They couldn't find you.
Yeah.
Well, they thought you were dead.
The longer they couldn't find me, the better off.
Remember, that's what it was about.
I couldn't wait to get out of my uniform and into my jeans and T-shirt and get my viewfinder around my neck. And, we had a great time on our show, and there are things that happened at the beginning. It came up recently. I was a pain in the ass.
No.
Jonathan, come on.
Wait, generally?
Oh, yeah, I was. At the beginning of the series.
Talk about that.
I was.
Well, that was where you were blowing smoke.
Wait,
up,
we're getting good stuff.
So
No,
it
this
might
is
have
the
been
beginning of
irritated.
this
It might have irritated the.
Let him talk about it. I want to hear about it.
Well, Doctor.
He is like a shrink, isn't he?
Yeah.
I was scared. The whole reason for me being a pain in the ass is that I was frightened of the work that I'd been asked to do. I'd never done anything like that in my life before. I'd never worked in Hollywood. I'd never been in a Hollywood studio. All these people, they were so easy and relaxed and familiar with everything. And I had the responsibility of sitting in that chair.
So what was it? How do you define? What are the results of a pain in the ass?
Well, I took everything too seriously. And I required my colleagues to take it seriously, too. And early on in the series, there was this famous meeting called by me. I was the captain, after all. You know, you're number one on the call sheet. He still calls me number one. And I called them all together, and I said, I really think it's important that we all start taking this work a little more seriously. I think there's too much fooling around. I can't believe I did this. Too much fooling around on the set, too much joking about. We're wasting time. I said, you've got to remember, we go home at different times of the day. These people, all these people, they're here 12 hours a day, more than that, day after day after day. So I think it's our responsibility. Can you believe that I made that? Would you have made that speech, Bill?
I would have said the opposite. It was Leonard who would make that speech.
Oh, I see. I do remember.
You're lying
at the end
again. You're lying. Right? Don't do that.
I said it was Denise.
I think I would really like to hear from you what the cast reaction was to this performance.
Well, I can tell you what Denise Crosby said. Denise Crosby said, "Oh, Patrick,
please,
we got to have some fun." And I said, "We are not here to have fun, Denise."
Very famous quote.
Yeah.
Who said it had to be fun?
Yeah.
Wow. He was a pain in the ass.
But you know what?
That changed.
Did it change? And not only that, I got to say this.
Everybody got serious?
No.
He changed.
I got to say this
What do you
publicly.
think?
Well,
The United
He was
States.
outnumbered by wild Americans.
The United States has been very, very good to me in many, many ways. Personally, professionally, financially, all of that. But perhaps the one thing that
This is a good way to open that Sir speech when you get knighted.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah.
And then segue into the...
yeah, but what about socially?
Socially? Yeah, too. But the point I'm trying to make is that America made me funny. I wasn't funny before I came to it. I mean, maybe, okay, it's up for debate. Maybe I'm still,
Now, you were amusing. Now you're funny.
You're funny, ha-ha. now.
You're ha-ha funny.
That's thanks to the United States. And these guys, because
No, I
they
think
made
you
me
were
funny, and I wasn't funny before.
You were doing things that...
They're talking about
You were
themselves.
working things out.
We're having this conversation.
They're trying to decide who would have made that speech. Who was the more serious?
Yeah.
Now,
Did you guys have that kind of...
Leonard came from a school of acting similar to Patrick's. Different approaches, but he was Spock. In the first years, he was Spock for a variety of reasons. Mostly safety.
I was submerged. Yeah. I really was.
Personal safety, so he felt safe there. And he was somewhat dour. I mean, he's got a great sense of humor, and it only came out later.
And were you wild from the beginning?
I'm afraid so.
I have one question that I would like to pose to each of you, which I would love for you each to answer. And that is, at this point in your life, and when you look at it, what did Star Trek mean for you?
Looking at me?
Sure.
Are you looking at me? You looking at me?
I'm looking at you.
Well, ultimately, Star Trek meant everything. Star Trek was a springboard into the many things that I've done subsequent to that. Star Trek led me into being this celebrity thing that is box office, which means people want you to do work that they wouldn't ordinarily want you to do, but because you're popular, you're in the public eye, and you can get publicity for the thing you're doing. So talent aside, the celebrity thing brings with it the ability to do things you might want to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what has happened to me. Whatever negative things Star Trek might have brought are far inferior to the extraordinary luck that I've had because of Star Trek.
Cool. Leonard?
I arrived in Los Angeles when I was 19 years old, and from the time I was 19 to the time I was 35, I had increasingly better and better roles over the years, but never had a job that lasted longer than 2 weeks. So I was in that cycle that so many actors are in, which is, what's the next job and will there be another job? And you'd get a job, and when the job was finished after 4, 5, 6 days or 10 days, whatever it was, there's that empty feeling of walking off the lot or driving off the lot and not knowing when or where you're going to work again. So for me, for the first time to see my name actually painted on a dressing room door rather than put on in chalk and then ready to be obliterated after 6 or 7 days was a major event and a great blessing, great blessing. After Star Trek, I never again had to worry about finding work. I have never needed to worry about getting work since Star Trek first went on the air in September 1966. A gigantic change in my life.
Nice. Patrick?
Everything that Bill said, everything that Leonard said applies to me too. But there are two other things. For me, huge pride in what we did, in what we put on the screen, the television screen and subsequently the movie screen. And in addition to that, to know that wherever I am in the world and whatever I'm doing, that there are 8 people. And I can pick up the phone, and whatever is good or bad for me, they will be there. Rock solid.
Wow, that's neat.
Yeah, I was going to take that one.
Sorry.
It created, in addition to being able to buy a car finally and buy a house and all the wonderful things that came from it and being part of this legacy, it has given me some of my closest lifelong friends. And every morning, no matter what mood I was in, I looked forward to going to work, no matter what the hour. I said, I'm going to spend the day with these clever, silly, talented, wonderful people. And it was, and still is, when we get back together, the best job in the world.
Wonderful.
Great.
Here. Oh, what was that other one? There was another one.
I never saw an episode of that, did you?
I'm so impressed.
What are we talking about?
You can sing it? I barely can recognize it.